Welcome. This review is going to be of the MakerBox. This is the first MakerBox I have ever ordered. This is the June 2019 MakerBox. I did buy this with my own money. This is not a sponsored video. Nobody paid me to do this or gave me anything free. This is just me wanting to try out some new filaments. So why did I decide to go this route? Well, the MakerBox, I'd seen a few video reviews, and I'd seen how it does offer you a variety of different filaments that you can try out. So this is my first MakerBox. I have not opened it yet, so I do not know what's inside of it. Let's take a look. Let's see. Flip them around this way. Some TreeD architectural clay. Filament mixed with clay powder. Well, it's going to be interesting. Here we have recycled PLA. Sourcing scrap materials, reintroduce it to manufacturing process. PLA plus black amethyst. Different additives to toughen your prints, so they're even easier to print and more durable. Okay. PLA natural. Change temperature and floaters. Active foaming technology to achieve lightweight, low density PLA parts. So it foams, increasing its volume 3 times. Huh. Well, that's interesting. Oh, another TreeD. This is a heritage brick. So this must be another one with some kind of brick-like stuff in it. Okay, now we've got... So I did go with both the normal MakerBox, and I went with the easy MakerBox. So the normal one was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 samples. I believe one of them was my bonus sample because this is my first box. But then we've got this whole thing here of easy. And easy is stuff that's just PLA and is supposed to be easy to print. And it's supposed to be to help you build lots of different kinds of filaments. So let's see what's in here. 3D Fuel Standard PLA. Are they all 3D Fuel Standard PLA? I guess so. So we've got yellow, blue, green, and clear. So what is this? This is a renewable, biodegradable 3D printing material that's easier on the environment. It's quick transition. Okay, well that'll certainly be interesting to try. So I was hoping for something a little bit more exciting in the easy samples than just for not so interesting average colors. I don't know exactly what I expected, but maybe something kind of cool looking. These look kind of regular, to be honest. Okay, let me go through some of the things I printed with my MakerBox. So here is the TreeD architectural clay. I printed a filament sample. This is yet another filament sample, key card edition, something like that. I have a whole box of these things. I tend to print new filaments and those to keep them around so I know what they look like. It looks cool. It definitely has kind of a clay appearance. It's fairly opaque. It bridged fine in there. It did the overhang fine. It did the circles fine. This was 230 degrees with, I think, a 50% fan. I also printed a calibration cube, same settings. Looks pretty good. There's a little bit of roughness in the top surface. A little bit of uneven layering in the sides. But it does look pretty good. Hi, this is my 60% Sir Layers a Lot from the TreeD architectural clay. So I aborted the print because I could tell things were not going well by looking at it. And what happened is we got a bunch of splitting and cracking. Here, I just pulled this off by hand. But you can see it's just not strong. So I think what's happened is that I've either got too much fan or I've got too low a temperature, and it's just there's no layer adhesion in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the fan down to 0 to 20% like the spec sheet said, and then I'm going to also increase the temperature from 230 to 240. Often you'll get kind of lumpier looking things when you turn off the cooling fan. It won't be quite as precise when the cooling fan was on. So I decided let's play to the strengths of the filament. So I printed this Cthulhu. I'm going to call him Clay Thulu, and I think he turned out pretty darn cool. He's not perfect. Like there is some warping on the base where it kind of contracted unevenly. But again, playing to the strengths of what happened, if you want something that looks kind of like a clay hand sculpture, I think it played to that, because the little bit of warping here and there adds some imperfection to the model. So I think Clay Thulu is pretty cool. I printed him like 55-60%. I'd love to print a bigger one, but that's all the filament I got. I would, if I could master this filament, I would definitely buy some of this. So this is a success from my MakerBox. It's found me a filament that I am interested in, but I do suspect that I really do need a enclosure so I could do controlled temperature and prevent that splitting and cracking that happened on the surlayers a lot. So then I moved up to the TreeD architectural heritage brick, and you can see it here. I'm going to put the architectural clay right next to it to compare. It's the same sort of thing with a slightly different tint to it. Does it look like brick? I don't think it looks like brick. To me, it looks like a maybe slightly browner, redder clay, which is fine, because I can find things that would print fine in that. In this one, I think I did print it with the fan turned off just to see what would happen. So, and I've noticed with the fan off, very thin parts do tend to like curl and warp like that. Again, I think having some fan with an enclosure is probably the solution to that filament, but I don't have an enclosure. So I wanted to try my surlayers a lot. I didn't want him warping, so I turned the fan on at 20%, and he didn't turn out so good. Like the other surlayers a lot that I tried in the other filament, I think with the fan at 50% split and cracked. This one at 20% also had his issues. He broke under here on the overhang. There's little splits. Yeah, see, he's got no layer adhesion with that fan. Even just a 20% fan, his layer adhesion is not good. So yeah, that didn't work out. So I turned the fan back off and I printed a gargoyle. Same philosophy as the Cthulhu. Let's print something that will play to the strengths of a filament with no cooling fan. You know, something where we want it a little bit lumpy. And this, I think, too, is a huge success, this gargoyle. To me, he looks and he feels kind of like a clay figurine. If you look real close, you can find there are some hairline splits every now and again. So I think even this is maybe suffering from some layer adhesion issues with the fan off. So then I figured, let's see what's really going on with that fan off. What kind of warping are we getting? So I printed a calibration cube. And we can see this calibration cube is rough. Again, this is no fan. You can see it contracted there near the base. The layers are all rough in the X and the Y. Even up here on the Z, there's dropouts in the top layer. So interestingly, it's printed with the exact same settings as the gargoyle. The gargoyle looks pretty cool. The calibration cube looks awful because the calibration cube was supposed to be square, whereas the gargoyle, he can be a little bit imperfect. So that's it for the TreeD filament. Here's gargoyle and Cthulhu next to one another. I really think these turned out cool. Like I say, I would buy one or the other of these filaments if I had myself an enclosure and I could get some more predictable results. This is one of the few 3D filaments I bought that I think actually doesn't look like colored plastic. To me, they actually kind of looked and felt a little bit like clay, even though they obviously are colored plastic with some clay powder in it. So huge success on that interesting filament. Next up, I did the black amethyst, which, even though I complained earlier in the video about not needing another black, I looked it up and it's actually purple. It's just a dark purple. I didn't look real close. But it is purple, and it's a dark purple with some sparkles in it. So hopefully you can see some sparkles in there. There's my filament sample. The filament sample turned out great. Overhang printed fine. The bridge printed fine. Seems dimensionally good. I can see, I don't know how well you can see them on the camera, but I can clearly see the sparkles. Top finish is a little bit rough. Something I just need to work on with my printer, getting that top finish smoother, or I could just sand it a bit. Then I figured it's time to go big and print the remaining filament in a FlexiCat. My daughter likes these Flexi toys, so I printed lots of different Flexi toys, Flexi Rexes, Flexi Water Bears, but why not add a FlexiCat? He turned out great, except we experienced an adhesion failure over here on the tail. So the tail should have been a bunch more segments. But what happened is I printed this on my textured Prusa sheet, which does not adhere super well to PLA. And these three middle segments came loose during the print. They moved, we got huge layer shifts. The tail went to hell. So we ended up with a cat with no tail. If I'd have printed this on the smooth Prusa sticker sheet, it would have turned out just fine. This was just me deciding to take a shortcut and not switch out sheets. Haven't had a failure like that on the sheet before, but I also haven't printed something with really little segments like that on the textured sheet before. Anyway, I think it turned out good. I can see the little sparkles in it. It looks cool. I like the color. The bottom, you can see the texture from the Prusa sheet looks good. Altogether, it's a good, nice print. I like this print. And this is another filament that if I did a lot of PLA, I would be tempted to buy this filament. I think it, with the sparkles and the color, I think it looks really cool. So I wanted to do a Sur Layers a lot in the purple filament, but I only had like 1.5 meters of it left. So I did a hybrid Sur Layers a lot. And the bottom half of them is in the recycled black PLA, whereas the top half of them is in the amethyst black PLA, the purple with the sparkles. And he turned out great. Both filaments turned out great. The details are there. The overhang is fine. It's not stringy. Details on the shield, both filaments are good. The logo and stuff on the back, they're both good. The helmet's great. So yeah, both the recycled PLA and the black amethyst purple PLA, both of them turned out great. For the final one, I decided to play with this low weight PLA, LW-PLA. I was a bit skeptical how this was going to turn out because it says, some experimentation necessary. I printed a filament sample. This was 50% extrusion multiplier, so extruding half as much plastic as you're supposed to, and 240 degrees and 25 millimeters per second. We produced the filament sample. It actually bridged. It's not perfect. It did the overhang. It's not perfect, but it did it. And it produced a usable filament sample. I think it is over extruded. In my next print, I brought it down to 40% extrusion multiplier and printed this calibration cube. Again, he's not perfect. The top is a little bit rough. This filament is a little bit oozy. The X detail is there. The Y detail is there. He looks all right. Let's see what size he came out to be. just about 20 millimeters. So he actually came out, I mean, it's low density, so it's hard to know when I'm pushing on it if I'm actually compressing it. I think I am. So he did, just not compressing it, he did expand a little bit in the Z direction, but he's close to dimensionally accurate. And so the extrusion multiplier set to 0.40, so this is using 60% less filament than normal. So it is very light. It feels like I could just like pinch this thing and it would crush down to dust. Definitely compared to one of the other cubes, it's a huge, noticeable, greater than 50% obvious weight difference. So the difficulties with this, I think it is kind of oozy. It did like to run out the nozzle a bit, and maybe if I spent some more time with it, I could get a little bit better at that. We'd have to see. And I figured I'll try doing a Sir Layers a lot just to see what happens. I didn't think this would even work in this filament. Again, this is 240 degrees, 40% extrusion multiplier. And, you know, it printed him. The details are legible. There are some lumps where stuff oozed out here and there. It actually did the overhang on the arm. You know, there's some lumps and some stringing. Like I said, this stuff is oozy. It adhered to the build plate just fine. You can see right here it oozed out the nozzle when it was finished, but it actually worked. And I was really shocked that this, cutting the extrusion rate down to 0.4 and letting the thing foam up in the nozzle and all that would actually work and produce a usable model, and it kind of did. And you know, again, he is super lightweight compared to the other one. So final thoughts. So I printed a lot of stuff. I had a lot of fun with it. I did not print anything from the easy assortment. These things, they look fine, but they weren't interesting to me. I have a feeling they're going to print filament samples and calibration cubes and 60% Sir Layers a lot just fine. I would not expect to have any issue with anything in this bag. I just don't really have a need for these at this time, so I'm going to chuck them away, and maybe on a rainy day sometime I will play with it and see what happens. But the rest of this stuff was really cool. I found 3, maybe 4 filaments that I would actually buy if I had an enclosure or I knew how to deal with that warping. I would certainly buy these clays. If I did more PLA stuff, I would buy this Amethyst black. I like the sparkles in it. And if I wanted to print like a lightweight glider or something, you know, something where I actually needed lightweight, maybe some kind of low density floating boat. I don't know what it would be where I would actually want that. But if I wanted that, you know, the lightweight PLA seems to work fine for that. So is the value there? Well, $30, you're not getting a lot of weight of filament. What you're getting is variety. I think the value, it's not great, but it is a way to experience this in a way that you could not otherwise experience it. You know, if I had spent the $30 a different way, maybe I could have got one roll of the black Amethyst. I haven't priced it, but I assume it's one of the more pricier PLAs. And then I could have printed a lot of black Amethyst. But, you know, I would have had no idea if I'd liked it until I'd actually seen some of it. The architectural clays, they seem to be about on the order like $40-50 US. So certainly to be able to play with some of that and learn whether I can even print it was handy, and learn what kind of things I would be able to print with it was handy, and learn that I need to build or buy myself an enclosure. That was handy. And then the lightweight is something I never ever would have bought on my own. So I'm going to keep an open mind to it. I'm going to see what shows up next month. I'm going to keep getting the easy assortment, though I'm going to put it kind of under a probation period here where I don't find that I'm getting something that really interests me. If these things just keep going in the pile without getting printed, I will probably just switch to only the Explorer assortment. I hope you enjoyed this video. If this sort of thing interests you, then please subscribe and I will make more of them. Thank you.